Welcome back to more Sip2Tally. I'm your host, Coach Evans, and today is Tuesday, so you know what that means. Power rankings time. And so I'm going to give you our top 10. We have graphics for teams 8 through 1. But let's start off. If you want to see the entire list, you have to become a Patreon. And in order to become a Patreon of the channel, you have to go over to patreon.com/Sip2Tally. That way you can see the entire list, teams 32 through 1. But let's go ahead and jump into it. Team number 10, which is a surprise to some people. And I thought this team was going to be in the tank for Caleb's situation. But as of right now, they're not. They're 3-1, and it's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Baker Mayfield is leading them to a 3-1 record. And I know a lot of Bucs fans are kind of upset that they're not in the running for Caleb. But right now I have them at number 10 on my power rankings. And it's kind of laughable that they sit there right now. But they're 3-1, leading that division. They won over the team that I thought would win that division, which was the New Orleans Saints. And right now, they're a pretty darn good football team. Their defense was solid. I just didn't think they'd get anything offensively, and they've been getting enough offensively to win games right now. At number 9, I have the Seattle Seahawks. Seattle Seahawks sacked Daniel Jones and company last night 11 times, which is absolutely nuts. Jamal Adams got hit with the Aaron Rodgers treatment, got in his first game back in over a year, played about 5 plays and got up out of there, going low on Daniel Jones and got a concussion. He wasn't happy about it, but as an overall team, the Seahawks have been playing good football, and I have them at number 9. So let's kind of transition into our graphics and kind of talk a little bit about teams 8 through 1. Coming in at number 8 with a victory over the team that supposedly had the best defense in the NFL at the time. Statistically, they had the best defense in the NFL at the time, the Baltimore Ravens. Lamar Jackson looked amazing playing Sunday. The defense, Roquan made some bold statements, and they came out and did what they had to do. Now, albeit it was versus DTR, who's a rookie. They didn't have Deshaun Watson, but in NFL, you play who comes out there. So, and they did what they had to do versus the Cleveland Browns, and Baltimore Ravens showed up and showed out, and they're the number 8 team in this week's power rankings. They moved up 1 spot from 9 to 8. Let's go to our next one. Number 7, the team that I said I would not sleep on anymore, the Detroit Lions. They moved up 4 spots. They're my number 7 team. They put a whooping on, who did Detroit beat? Trying to remember off the top of my head. Green Bay Packers on Thursday Night Football, 34-20. They moved up to 7 spots. Their offensive line, potentially the best offensive line in the NFL, up there with the Eagles. They legit, man. And I know, like I said, I was hating on them, and I put the video out, apologizing and eating my crow. These guys legit. They got a legit scheme. Their defense coming along. I still think they need to get Jamar Gibbs the ball more than they get David Montgomery, but that's a different subject for a different day. Let's go on to number 6. I think this team should be higher, but they not. They offense just really just not clicking. They not clicking just yet. But the Kansas City Chiefs, I dropped the Chiefs 2 spots. I had them at 4 last week. I dropped them to 6 because that offense just not clicking. Their defense kind of keeping them in games. They won that game, but Pat Mahomes didn't look like the Pat Mahomes of like that we expect him to be. They pulled it out, but I can't say this. The Jets got a pretty darn good defense. Offensively, the Jets ain't there yet, and I will say their quarterback had probably his best game. And I probably should give him a pass because the Jets defense is probably one of the better defenses in the league. But still, the offense, Kansas City's offense should be better than what they're showing so far. Because they haven't looked like Kansas City's offense against the Jets either. So, but I dropped them down 2 spots. They at number 6. Coming in at number 5, Dallas Cowboys. They went back at it. They destroyed the Patriots 38-3. They went back to their old ways, and they were number 1 for week 1, 2. They were number 1 for week 1 and 2. Then they had that fluky loss to the Cardinals. But they got back to their old ways, and they got a huge matchup coming up. Next week. Next week will tell a lot about the Cowboys, whether they contenders or pretenders. Next week will tell a lot, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Coming in at number 4, Miami Dolphins. They were number 1 last week. The Bills kicked their butt. They scored 70 versus the Broncos last week. The Bills held them to 20, if I'm not mistaken. Let me check and make sure. Yeah, just 20. They went from 70 to 20. Bills got after they butt. GATA. And you know what the last A stand for. So I dropped them number 4, but they're still a good football team. The Bills just showed up and showed out. And since that first loss, the Bills lost, they've been on their game. They've won 3 in a row. They hot, and they ran into a buzzsaw. Going to number 3. Number 3, we have the aforementioned Buffalo Bills. Bills lost that first game versus the Jets, if I'm not mistaken, and they've been on fire since. They put a whooping. They like physically whooped up on the Dolphins Sunday, and it was a boxing match, and they landed all their jabs and all their haymakers, all their uppercuts, all their body blows. They took it to the Dolphins and looked very, very, very impressive. They moved up. The Bills moved up 4 spots. Coming in at number 2, Philadelphia Eagles. Philadelphia Eagles just chugging along, just beating whoever you throw in their face. Just, however, now it didn't look pretty. They won in overtime versus the Commanders. It's a divisional game, but they just chugging along. No matter how it looks, they beating you in different ways. They beating you through the air. They beating you on the ground. They beating you ugly. They beating you pretty. They still 4-0. Nobody's found a way to beat them yet. Close games, blowouts, they still chugging along. Which means we do have a new number 1 since the Dolphins lost. That new number 1, San Francisco 49ers. I was holding off. They've been number 2 for the first 3 weeks. They were number 2 behind the Cowboys week 1. They were number 2 behind the Cowboys week 2. The Dolphins had that big old jump, and I left them at number 2 behind the Dolphins. There was no denying them putting them at number 1 this week. They're probably the most complete team in the NFL. Top to bottom on offense, top to bottom on defense. They're probably the most complete team in the NFL. And so I mentioned the big matchup this week. I wish the Cowboys had not lost to the Cardinals. This would have been the first super game of the year. I would have had in my power rankings, the number 1 ranked Cowboys and the number 1 ranked 49ers in an early super matchup. But it's still going to be a good matchup. With it coming up, we're going to have the number 1 ranked 49ers versus the number 5 ranked Cowboys. And we'll definitely have some kind of shakeup in the more Sip2Tally power rankings coming up next week. With that being said, man, I appreciate you guys for coming through. If you like the content, hit the like button. If you really like it, consider subscribing and hit that bell so you can be notified when the rest of these power rankings drop, which is every Tuesday. And I appreciate you guys for coming through. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you chose to be here with me. And I'll see y'all next Tuesday with a week 5 version of the more Sip2Tally power rankings. Who will be number 1? Will we have a new one? If the 49ers lose, we definitely have a new one. And will it be the Cowboys if they win? Tune in next week and find out. And we'll see y'all then.